All right, guys. So in the previous video, we're looking at question 14 to do with this question, talking about the life expectancy in Japan and how it's greater and some of the factors which are involved in it being greater than the USA and other countries. But now, guys, we move on to the next question, which is question 15. So we read this together. It says, while some animal rights activists have long accepted that there is a link between bovine tuberculosis, TB, in cattle and badgers, others have argued that it was not proven. They felt that the culling of badgers to stop the spread of TB in cattle was not justified if a link was unproven, but direct evidence of the transmission of TB between badgers and cattle has now been found. DNA sequences of the TB bacteria in cattle and in badgers have shown that the disease crosses species barriers. This latest discovery completely undermines the case of those who have opposed badger culling to protect farmers from severe loss of their cattle and hence their livelihoods, and to protect one of our primary sources of meat and milk. The badger population should be culled, and it says which of the following would weaken the argument. So guys, pause the video, give yourself just over a minute, be back after that, and then we'll be going through the solution. Okay, guys, let's go through this. This says, while some animal activists have long said that there's a link between TB in cattle and badgers, others have argued that this was not proven, right? So here is really just stating observation of what other people think, their opinions, but this is not the opinion of the writer. So this is, you take this as a fact. So we can just cross this all out. So we can just cross this all out. That is a bit messy, but sorry, guys. And then it says they felt that the culling of badgers to stop the spread of TB in cattle was not justified if a link was unproven. Again, guys, this is clearly just other people's opinion. Therefore, we treat this as fact. So you can just cross this all out. So cross that all out. And then it says, but direct evidence of transmission of TB between badgers and cattle have now has now been found. So this is just clearly stating. Remember, evidence, study, or research. All of this is just clearly fact, isn't it? So we can just underline that out as fact. And then it says DNA sequences of the TB in cattle and in badgers have shown that the disease crosses species barriers. Again, this is basically kind of like research findings. This is clearly fact. It's likely not to be lying about this. So you can just cross this out. And then it says this latest discovery completely undermines the case of those who have opposed badger culling. So this is kind of his opinion, isn't it? He's saying because of this, this is what I think. So he's basically saying this undermines the case of those who have opposed. So he's saying we should be doing badger culling. That's essentially what he's trying to say here. And then it says to protect farmers from severe loss of their cattle and hence their livelihoods, and to protect one of the primary sources of meat and badgers, the badger population should be culled. Again, guys, remember, hopefully by this point you understand that this is a clear, strong conclusion indicator. It should be culled, or it must be, you must do this, or you need to do this. So basically, the overarching idea then is that the badger population should be culled, and really that should part really just makes that the strongest conclusion there. So you can just underline out everything else. So we can just cross this and the previous parts out. Okay, so now, so the conclusion is, so hopefully, guys, and also you can appreciate then that it's quite easy in these kind of questions to find the conclusion, because at the end of the day, it's not really a testing your skills and finding conclusion of passages. It's just looking for, in this case, what would weaken this conclusion. So what would weaken the conclusion that badger population should be culled? So what would suggest that the badger population should not be culled? And it says animal rights activists are interested in the protection of badgers per se, whatever risk they pose. So this one, yes, it does suggest, in the eyes of animal rights people, that they shouldn't be. So far, it does strengthen it, so it does weaken it. So because remember that's saying it should be called, but this would suggest it shouldn't be called. It does weaken it, but it might not be the strongest. But so far it wins because obviously it's the only one we've considered. And then it says there may be other factors than badgers, such as the movement of cattle, which contribute to the spread of TB in cattle. So clearly this one also is good, guys, because this would mean that if you cull the badgers, it's not really going to solve the problem that you have in it, the spread of TB. It's saying that other factors are involved there. And therefore, this does weaken it. And actually, I like this one more than the first one, because the first one is really to do with animal rights activists, and it's not really in the context of what this passage is about. So remember, with these weakened questions, and strengthen questions as well, quite a few of the options would strengthen or weaken it, but which one would most weaken it? So, and normally the one that would most weaken it is the one which is in the context of the passage. And in terms of this passage, it's really talking about the spread of TB, not really what animal activists care about. So that's why we can cross out this one, and so far B wins. And then says it's too expensive and logistically difficult to vaccinate all cattle against TB. So if it's difficult to vaccinate, so then the obvious other thing to do is cull them. So this is for culling. So this one actually strengthens it, so it can't be this one. And then it says badger culling would be unpopular with a substantial number of people. again, so this would suggest that you shouldn't do it. So again, yes, this does weaken it, but it doesn't weaken it to the extent of B, isn't it? Because this is just saying it's unpopular with a number of people. It's not really talking about, the context of the passage that, is to do with spread of TB and stuff like that. So this is why I don't like this one. Then it says, not all farmers are convinced that the culling would, not all farmers are convinced that the culling of badgers would stop the spread of TB. So that would obviously suggest that um, we shouldn't code them. So this one is also quite good. And I actually quite like this one compared to the other ones, but I still actually think B is more suitable. The reason about this, because I believe it doesn't really even talk about farmers in the passage, right? It's really just talk about this observation of, the spread. It doesn't really talk about what farmers think, what animal rights activists think, or what just general people think. It's really just talking about the idea of the thing spreading in cattle. So this is why I don't like this one. So hopefully, guys, you can appreciate then in this answer, the answer in this question, sorry, the answer would be B. So hopefully, guys, that has made sense as always. And yeah, so this is just learning points, guys. So mostly you're going to get two or three which are going to weaken in this case. But then what you got to do is look at the one which is more kind of in the tone of what's being talked about. This sort of, in this question, animal rights activists never mentioned, farmers not really mentioned there. So kind of in the context and also weakening. So hopefully, guys, that has made sense. And as always, look forward to seeing you in the next video. Okay, guys, so previously we looked at this question to do with TB and whether they should be cold or not. But hopefully, guys, that's made sense. And really, this question I think was really good to go through the skills that you require to answer these kind of strength and weaken questions. But without further ado, guys, we're going to move on to the series of questions in the series of questions to do with strength and weaken in the IMAT 2015 paper. So let's start, guys. So this is question one. So first question, we're already starting with a strength weaken question. So let's read this together. It says, although the Earth supports life, it has mysterious carbon deficit. Compared with other bodies in the solar system, the Earth has far less carbon than would be expected for a planet that supports life. Originally, it was thought that in the inner region of the dusk disk where the Earth formed, temperature soared high enough for the carbon to boil away. However, observations of developing solar systems have now suggested that the temperature would not have been high enough. It is more likely that fire is to blame. Hot oxygen atoms would have readily combined with carbon, burning to produce carbon dioxide. There would have been fewer of these oxygen atoms further away from the sun. So which of the following are true would more strengthen the above argument? So guys, pause the video, give yourself just over a minute. Be sure to be back after that, and then we'll be going through the solution. Okay, guys, so let's go through this. Although the Earth supports that it has mysterious carbon deficit. So this is the fact that it has carbon. Although you might not know that, it's clearly the tone of it is basically a fact. So you can just cross this out. Then it says, compared with other bodies in the solar system, the Earth has far less carbon than we expect for a planet that supports life. Again, just observations. So this is just fact. So you can just cross this all out. So let's cross that out. And then it says, originally it was thought that in the inner region of the dusk disk where the Earth formed, temperatures soared high enough for the carbon to boil away. Again, he's just saying what other people thought, so their opinion. But in terms of this, it's just observing sort of a fact. You can treat this as an opinion. So you can just cross this out. Then it says, however, observations of the developing solar systems have now suggested that the temperature would not have been high enough. Yeah, so it's now just it's just saying suggestions of RP, so it might be their opinion. Again, treat it as fact. So you can just cross this all out. Then it says, is more likely that fire is to blame. So this is clearly his opinion. He's not really saying other people thought this or this is what's being suggested. He's saying fire. This is his idea that fire is to blame. So this is clearly his opinion. And this is hot oxygen actually would have readily combined with carbon, burning to produce carbon dioxide. So again, this is just kind of a lead on from his previous statement. So this is part of his conclusion as well. There would have been few of these oxygen atoms further away. There have been few of these oxygen atoms further away from the sun. So this kind of adds on to his opinion. So basically, what he's trying to say over here, fire is to blame for the carbon deficit, and essentially hot oxygen atoms with the carbon just formed carbon dioxide, and that's why you have a carbon deficit. Which of the following would more strengthen? So which one would suggest that essentially fire and hot oxygen, if you like, are to blame? This is the carbon that is present on the Earth could have arrived at a later date from an asteroid. So this one will actually weaken it, isn't it? This is given another reason. Yeah, so this is given this is given other reasons. So the carbon that is present could have arrived at a later date from an asteroid. Yes, so that's basically just other reasons why, where the carbon is coming from, if you like. But it's not really that relevant. You probably would know straight away that this is not going to be one of the answers. Then it says, part B, the abundance of carbon in the asteroid belt surrounding the inner planet increases um, the further away you are from the sun. So the abundance of carbon in the asteroid belt surrounding the inner planet increases further away you are from the sun. So as you go further away from the sun, yeah, this was so so this one is trying to say as you're further away from the sun, right, you're gonna have less and less carbon essentially. So I guess this one we could consider, right? But we'll come back to that anyway. And it says there's no theoretical reason why life has to be carbon based. The reason I don't like this one because it's not really talking about the carbon deficit. Yes, it does talk about life and it needing carbon and stuff, but that wasn't the main idea. The main idea is to do with the carbon deficit. Hence why I don't like this one. And then there are other solar systems with Earth-like planets that have an abundance of carbon on them. Again, it's not really addressing the carbon deficit and what can cause the carbon deficit. So this is why I don't like this one. And it says at temperatures that are high enough for carbon to boil, oxygen would have also boiled away. So this one would actually weaken it because if oxygen had boiled away, then this hot oxygen couldn't have combined with the carbon, isn't it? And therefore that reaction he's talking about that made carbon dioxide wouldn't have happened. So it can't be this one. So either way, guys, hopefully by a process of elimination, although I don't like this passage is quite weird. Although I don't B is probably not the most clear answer. It compared to the others, it would be the most suitable answer. And unfortunately, guys, in the BMAT, most of the questions are this way. Most of the questions you would solve by a process of elimination. But either guys, if you have any questions, just post them down below. But other than that, I hope I have been of some use, and I hope that has really made sense. But other than that, see you in the next video. All right, guys. So welcome back. So previously we were looking at this question one. I think it was of the IMAT 2015 paper. Yes, we were looking at this idea of carbon deficit on Earth. Bit of a weird passage, but either way, guys, hopefully you managed to get the answer or you managed to follow up the answer with me. B was the correct answer through a process of elimination at least. But now, guys, we go into the next question, which is question 5. It says, children are being encouraged to take up gardening through special events like shows and activities in school. It is hoped that an interest in gardening and particularly growing one's own food will make children more interested in healthy learning about their food interested in learning about their food and they will therefore be deterred from eating junk food. The initiative should be supported and spread to more schools as quickly as possible. And which of the following is true would most weaken the above argument. So guys, pause the video, give yourself a minute, be sure to be back after that, just over a minute actually, and then be sure to be back after that. We'll be going through the solution. Okay, guys, so welcome back. So let's read. It says, children are being encouraged to take up gardening through special events that shows and activities in schools. So this is just the author, his observation of what's going on with this whole idea of children and healthy eating, isn't it? So we can just cross this up. Then it says, it's hoped that an interest in gardening, particularly growing one's own food, will make children more interested in learning about their food, and they will therefore be deterred from eating junk food. So this is really just talking about why that scheme is there, isn't it? Why other people are doing this scheme, right? So this is clearly just stating his observations. So we can just cross this out as fact. So crossing this all out. And then it says, the initiative should be supported and spread to more schools as quickly as possible. So this is quite of a standard paragraph, isn't it? Because we can really see this key word, and from that we really know it's a conclusion. The initiative should be supported, so it's something we should do, isn't it? And therefore, this is going to be the strongest opinion, right? So which one is going to weaken it? So which one is going to suggest that this initiative should not be supported? So it says the practical experience of gardening is not a traditional academic subject, right? So if it's not a traditional academic subject, I mean, you could argue that doesn't really do anything. I mean, you could say since it's not a traditional academic subject, it shouldn't be supported, but at the same time, you say should be supported. So I don't really like this one. This is quite neutral, kind of just random, if you like. So you can just cross this out. Then it says the events to encourage children to garden also include stands where junk food was for sale, right? So if junk food was on sale on these stands, then that would suggest you should the initiative. So it says it says, what does it say about the events? Like, let's go back to that. It said yes, I think the events is really just talking about the shows and the activities in schools. It includes stands where junk food was. This one's a bit of a weird one the fact that I mean, students are engaging, you could argue that they are kind of still interested in healthy eating, and therefore that really shows that they're committed if they're given the opportunity, and hence we should support it. But at the same time, you can also argue that the fact that there was junk food, that could have been the reason why they were at those events. So again, this is kind of neutral. I don't really like this one, so I'm going to cross this out. And then it says some schools do not have a garden. Yeah, so if they don't have a garden, again, that would mean, I mean, you could argue that that would mean that this thing wouldn't be practical. Um, but I mean, you could make something which looks like a garden, which these children can do the activities surrounding gardening. So it doesn't really tell me anything about if it should be supported or shouldn't be supported. So this one I don't really like again. And then it says it's tend to be older people are interested in gardening and growing their own food. So this would suggest that children are not interested, and if they're not interested, then it shouldn't. You would think that it shouldn't be supported, but maybe it could be that children don't even know about gardening. So to bring them into this light, we should support this so we can teach them more about it. That's why again I don't really like this one. But let's look at E. It says most children have enjoyed the events provided, but have not gained an interest in gardening itself. This one is really good because it's really to the general theme of this paragraph. So it's saying, yes, a lot of people went to this event, but nothing positive has resulted out of it. That clearly very nicely links into that conclusion, and it actually weakens it by it suggests that yeah, long term this is not really gonna do good for the overall idea of children and gardening. So this one's really good. This is double tick that actually. So hopefully guys you can appreciate then that in this question E was the correct answer. But as always guys, really hope that was useful, and again we look forward to seeing you in the next video. All right, guys. So previously, you looked at this question to do with children and how this idea of gardening might be a good idea and it should be supported. And then you're looking at which one weakened the argument. So hopefully, guys, you can appreciate then in this one, E was the correct answer. And this is really, guys, an example of a standard question you could be expecting to see in these strength and weaken type questions in the BMAT. But now, guys, we move on to IMAT 2014 and its series of questions. And we start with question 10. So it says there's concern at the moment about the way in which football referees are treated by players during games. The Football Association and the Referees Association feel that there is too much verbal and physical abuse directed at referees. Various solutions have been suggested, such as only allowing the captain of each team to approach and talk to the referee. The major difficulty is how such new rules should be introduced. The preferred solution seems to be that the rules should be changed first in the amateur game, the aim being to improve discipline in the game from the bottom upwards until the whole game is improved. And so which of the following, if true, would most weaken the argument? So guys, pause the video, give yourself a minute, be sure to be back after that, and then we'll be going through the solution. Okay, guys, so welcome back. So let's go through this. It says there's concern at the moment about the way in which football referees are treated by players during games. So this is he's just stating his observation about what other people are concerned about in the footballing game. So this is just treated as fact. Then it says the Football Association, Referees Association feel that there's too much verbal and physical abuse directed at referees. So those two associations, that's their opinion, but he's just kind of stating other people's opinions. So he's more or less stating fact. So we can just cross this out. And it says various solutions have been suggested, such as only allowing the captain of each team to approach and talk to the referee. Yeah, so he's just again stating observation of what other people have talked about, what solutions they think might fix this problem. So we can just cross this out. And then it says the major difficulty is how such new rules should be introduced. This is kind of, I guess, his opinion. Uh, it's not really too strong, but he might think that how this rule should be introduced is the problem here. So that's clearly his opinion, although not super strong because he's not really demanding anything from us. It says the preferred suggestion seems to be that the rule should be changed first in the amateur game, and the aim being to improve discipline in the game from the bottom up until the whole game is improved. Yeah, so I guess that kind of links in, is tied in with the previous one. We can just kind of leave that as it is. So it's basically saying the difficulty in this idea is how you should introduce the rules, and he's saying that a good solution, in his eyes and in other eyes, would be to start from the bottom and then it would improve upwards as people go from amateur to professional. And says which one would weaken this? So looking for ones that would weaken this. It says by introducing it first to amateur, it reaches those who spend the least time playing football, right? So firstly, so if these are people who spend the least time playing football, then that would actually weaken it because it means that even if you do it at amateur, it's not really going to affect. Since they only play a little time, the people playing most of the time are not at amateur, therefore they're not going to face these rules. So that by that way, that would actually weaken it. Uh, I mean, we could just put it down for now. Although I don't really like it too much, it's probably one that's going to weaken it even more. And it says not many professional players start out in amateur leagues. Yeah, this one's actually quite good because the whole idea of this paragraph, guys, is that you basically sort people out from when they're a kid, from when they're playing amateur or whenever they're playing amateur, not necessarily a kid. And the idea is when they get disciplined as a youth, they'll essentially when they become professional, um, they would have that discipline with them and bring it up to when they go to professional. But obviously, if most professional players are not amateur players, haven't started off as amateur players, this teaching won't reach them, and therefore they will still just behave as they're normally behaving. This is why I like this one more, and hence why I'm definitely going to cross off A. I didn't really like that in the first place, so put that off so far. Because amateur players are more likely to abuse referees than our um, amateur players are more likely to abuse referees than our professionals. Yeah, I guess if anything, this one would strengthen the argument that you should do it at amateurs, right? So if they're more likely to abuse, then it makes more sense to put it in as amateurs, and then they would fix up as professionals. So this one can't be. This one probably actually strengthen it, because referees should use their existing powers to control abusive behaviors. Um, this one, it's not really too relevant, but what it would suggest that referees should sort out their problem, and you don't need like the thing we're talking about here. We don't need that thing to sort out the problem. Although it's kind of random, that's why I don't really like it. It doesn't really tie into the overall gist of the paragraph. So this is why I'm going to cross that. And then it says referees in the amateur game are less proficient than those in the professional game. So if the referees are less proficient, surely this is just my idea, but if they're less proficient, surely that would mean that it would make sense to just to ease them into the career. It would make more sense to have these ruling in place. This one probably strengthened, but again, it's probably even that, guys, it's probably just random, I would say. But hopefully, guys, you can really appreciate that B is the answer. So remember, guys, with these kind of questions, you're looking at which one weakens it first, so you can probably find a few of them, but then which one really actually ties in with the idea. So you have to have in the back of your head the idea of the paragraph. The conclusion for these is sometimes, most of the time, 95% of the time, easy to find. But just have at the back of your head the overall idea of the paragraph. But hopefully that has made sense, guys. And as always, we look forward to seeing you in the next video.